Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. If you're a coach, a manager, a leader, or really anyone in people development, you already know the deal. The quality of your conversations literally dictates the quality of your team's results. You're constantly juggling team dynamics, trying to hit those ambitious targets, putting out fires, all while trying to actually develop the people reporting to you. It's a heavy load, right? Well, today we're unpacking a super effective framework to make that burden significantly lighter. It's called Well-Formed Outcomes, and it's pulled straight from Fred Clements' working toolkit for real conversations. This isn't just dry academic theory, it's a deeply practical, game-changing method for driving real change in the real world. So think about this. Have you ever been in a coaching or management conversation that just feels stuck? We've all known that deep frustration, right? The conversation just seems to go in endless circles. You're sitting across from someone, maybe in a one-to-one, and they let out this heavy sigh and say, I just want things to be better, or I just don't want to feel so overwhelmed all the time. It's honest for sure, but it leaves you totally uncertain about how to actually help them move forward. The energy just drains right out of the room. You desperately want to help guide them, but because there's no clear destination, you're both kind of just spinning your wheels in the mud. And when we don't have a structured way to guide people, you start seeing these symptoms paralyze the team everywhere you look. Vague complaints totally replace clear, actionable goals. People lack confidence and they stop taking ownership over their own development. They basically just wait to be told what to do. The feedback you give, it falls flat because it has nothing concrete to attach to. And eventually team trust and morale just tank because stuck thinking becomes the default state of the department. These harsh realities, unclear conversations, poor ownership, stuck thinking, are exactly why we need a reliable, practical way to help people find their direction and pull themselves out of that rut. To solve this today, we're going to explore the Well-Formed Outcomes tool. We'll define what it is, apply the core questions that make it work, highlight common mistakes to avoid, look at a practical example, and finally, show how this leads to real change. Section 1, Defining Well-Formed Outcomes. Let's start right at the foundation. I absolutely love this quote from Fred Clements' book. He writes, "Good conversations change everything. They build clarity, create confidence, strengthen relationships, and unlock potential." This sets a core philosophy perfectly. Think about that for a second. Thinking isn't about jumping in like a superhero and rescuing people with your brilliant advice. It's about creating the right conversation to help them access their own answers and step into their own potential. It shifts the burden of solving the problem from you, the manager, right back to the individual, where it truly belongs. So a well-formed outcome is a goal that's been shaped and tested so that it's clear, positive, specific, meaningful, and realistic. The crucial point here is that it takes goal setting to a whole new level. It moves it from a vague, abstract intention, like a boring, uninspiring sentence on a piece of paper, into a much clearer, tested, and grounded destination. It's no longer just a wish. It's a detailed, stress-tested roadmap. The person actually knows what it looks and feels like to achieve it in their day-to-day life. Now notice the immediate shift in focus here. When someone is stuck, they are usually speaking in problem language. They enthusiastically tell you what they desperately want to escape, like, I don't want to feel stressed. A well-formed outcome forces an immediate shift to outcome language. We ask, okay, but what do you want instead? Suddenly they have to articulate a positive future state. I want to feel calmer and in control. It completely rewires the brain in that exact moment and changes the whole trajectory of the conversation, from looking backwards at the problem to looking forward at the solution. To make that powerful shift, Clements outlines 13 specific powerful questions. These are designed to establish a rock-solid outcome, digging right into the core of what the person actually desires. Now, I know what you might be thinking. 13 questions is a tall order for a quick catch-up, but don't worry about memorizing the whole shebang right now. There's a simple way to break them down so you can seamlessly weave them into your natural management style. Let's move into applying those core questions and see how this builds into a practical framework. Instead of tackling all 13 questions at once, which, let's be honest, might feel a bit like an interrogation to your team member, we organize them into 4 logical phases. First, clarifying the want in positive terms, getting them out of problem language. Second, establishing sensory evidence, making the goal incredibly tangible. Third, defining context and boundaries, ensuring the goal fits the right situations. And fourth, performing an ecology check to look at the wider ripple effects. Moving deliberately through these 4 phases gently guides the person from total confusion to complete, undeniable clarity. Let's zoom in on phase 2, sensory evidence. How will you know when you've got it? What will you see, hear, and feel This is genuinely one of the strongest, most transformative parts of the tool. A vague goal gives the mind nothing to work with, but by asking, what will you actually feel in your body? Or what will you hear yourself saying? You make the goal entirely concrete. Why does this matter? Because the human brain struggles to chase an abstract concept, but it will readily chase a concrete experience. The person stops intellectualizing their problem and starts mentally experiencing their success. Then we move to context and boundaries. It's not enough to just ask what someone wants. We absolutely must ask where, when, and with whom they want it. And just as importantly, where they don't want it. For example, a manager might declare they want to be more assertive. Great goal, but we need strict boundaries so that a desire to be assertive in high-stakes team meetings doesn't accidentally translate into being blunt, abrasive, and dismissive in every single quiet hallway conversation. Context is literally everything, and that brings us to the ecology check. What happens if you do make the change? What happens if you don't? What won't happen if you do? And what won't happen if you don't? Okay, I know those last two sound like a bit of a tongue twister, but they are perfectly designed to bypass our normal defensive logic. They reveal hidden concerns that might secretly sabotage the goal later. They expose the ongoing painful costs of inaction. And most importantly, they ensure that the goal actually supports the person's life as a whole, rather than solving one issue only to create 3 new problems elsewhere. Next up, let's briefly look at the common mistakes to avoid. While this tool is incredibly effective, here are the big watch-outs that can trip up even experienced leaders. First, rushing to action before the outcome is actually clear. Creating a beautifully detailed action plan for the wrong goal is totally useless. Second, skipping that sensory evidence we just talked about. Do not let the goal stay abstract. Third, ignoring the ecology and missing hidden concerns that will inevitably derail progress. Fourth, and this is a massive one, setting goals that depend entirely on someone else. If a coachee says, I want my boss to listen to me more, that's a recipe for absolute frustration, because we can only ever control our own actions. And finally, never ever end the conversation without defining that very first, small, practical step forward. Section 4, the tool in practice. Let's see how this actually sounds in real life. Imagine a team member comes to you, sits down, and simply says, I lack confidence. Without this tool, your first instinct might be to jump in, give them a pep talk or offer advice, but using well-formed outcomes, the coach pauses, leans in, and warmly asks, what would confidence look, sound, and feel like in this specific situation? Instantly, the dynamic shifts. The coachee has to stop dwelling on their lack of confidence and start actively visualizing a sensory-specific roadmap of what confidence actually is for them. It empowers them to define their own success. Let's bring this all together for our final section, real conversations, real change. So, going back to our opening hook, how do we help someone move forward when they are spinning their wheels, burning energy, and feeling totally stuck? We do it by acting as a compass. We don't drag them to the finish line, and we certainly don't run the race for them. Instead, we use targeted, sensory-based, and ecologically sound questions to clarify their destination. When they can clearly see exactly where they are going, they can take the confident, decisive action required to get there. And this is the ultimate takeaway. Clarity creates focus, focus creates action, action creates results. By consistently shifting people away from vague complaints and problem language and moving them toward well-formed outcomes, you empower them to take real, unshakable responsibility. You step out of the exhausting role of the constant advice giver, and you start being the catalyst for lasting, meaningful impact in their professional lives. This is exactly how you build a resilient, self-directed team. So the next time a team member sits across from you, feeling totally stuck, will you fall into the trap of just giving them advice, or will you ask the right questions to help them build a well-formed outcome? The Well-Formed Outcomes Framework is just one of many incredibly practical methods outlined in this source material. For more information, head over to clementsconsultancy.com to buy a discounted PDF copy of the book, or head over to Amazon for the ebook or printed version.